This Arizona football offense has the capabilities of being the best U of A offense since 1998. How did we get to this point coming off a 20-game losing streak just recently? We're going to break it all down here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke, and thanks for making this your first listen of the day. All right, we got a ton to get to on this show, but we're going to talk about the Arizona offense and where exactly it stacks up historically and where it should stack up in the conference. Now, I am of the opinion that this is going to be the best Arizona offense since 1998 when the team went 12-1 and finished in the top 5 in the nation. Now, to remember who was on that team, that was a loaded team, to put it mildly. I believe 17 NFL players. Not only 17 NFL players, but the quarterback position, you had Keith Smith and Ortiz Jenkins. At the running back, you had trunk candidate Kelvin Ifon. Obviously, some pretty good players there. At that wide receiving core, you had Dennis Northcutt. You had Jeremy McDaniel. The tight ends, you had Brandon Manamuliana. And you had Mike Lucky, and then at the on the offensive line spots, you had a big use of Scott. You had a bunch of different guys, and Edwin Mulatalo, who turned out to be obviously a really, really good pro. So again, it was a loaded offense. I think it was the high water mark of Arizona football was that year. Now with this team though, let's kind of go and where they compare. First, you got Jayden de Laura at that QB spot. De Laura is a kind of a, I guess, schizophrenic quarterback. I'll put it to you like that. He can play. He's got some really, really good moments. He's got some really, really bad moments. But when he's good, he's really, really good. You know, and again, we've talked about that before. When he's bad, he struggles. You certainly hope if you're Arizona that he will be able to make that next step right there, that he'll be able to get in there and, you know, let's be honest, make consistency a real part of his game, because the consistency has not been there for him. And I think that's what's frustrated some fans, but it also frustrates him a little bit because you see what he's got right there. I mean, you see that he's got the ability to get the ball downfield, to make the right reads, to move around. I mean, he's got big time potential to him. It's just about being able to put that in place. And with the kind of skill position players he has around him, he doesn't really need to worry about that. He doesn't really need to try to make plays that he can't. This isn't one of the Kevin Sumlin or, you know, one of the Kevin Sumlin teams or the early Mike Stoops teams, excuse me, where you just had no talent. You had a lot of talent, and we're going to get to that talent right here. Let's talk about the wide receiving core. I don't believe that there might be as good a wide receiving duos in the country, but I don't believe that there's anybody better than T-Mac and Jacob Cowing. Now, Jacob Cowing surprised a lot of people by coming back, caught for over 1,000 yards last year, led the nation in yards after catch. Tremendous player. He's about 5'8", and I think they thought that it'd be good for him to come back and, as Tyler Owens, U of A's great strength and conditioning coach, said, get some body armor on him. And he's a little bulked up, obviously looks good. I look for him to go over 1,000 yards again and probably be all conference. Then you got T-Mac, the all-world wide receiver out of California, was a freshman All-American. I would not be surprised at all if he caught for 13 or 14 touchdowns this year and led the conference in receiving touchdowns. He's got that ability to him. He's increased his speed. And not only has he increased his speed, as we know, the ball skills are fantastic. He can tip balls to himself. He can get up there. He can just do a lot of different things. He's going to be an NFL player. At what level, I think it's still to be determined. But if he can get that speed into that high 4.4 range, you could be easily looking at a first-round pick right there. And if not a first-round pick, then a high second-round pick. He's definitely an NFL player, as is Jacob Cowing. Cowing is obviously significantly shorter, so that's going to hold him back to a certain extent, but also won't be something that's going to be a total deal breaker though either. I expect him to play in the NFL. So both those guys are all conference type players. And again, I don't know that there's anybody that I would take over those two. Then at those other receiver spots, you bring in Montana Lamonius Craig, maybe one of the best names in college football. Kid out of California originally, 4-star kid out of Inglewood, went to Colorado initially, was Colorado's best receiver last year. Obviously, Colorado didn't have any kind of passing game, so that was something that people need to keep an eye on. I think that it's going to be a much better offense. I think that it's going to be something where you're getting I think he'll be able to get 700 yards. I don't expect him to replace Dorian Singer, but I also think that he'll be able to get somewhere around that kind of contribution, though, at what you want at that third spot. So I think he's going to be that third guy. Then after that, you got Kevin Green Jr., you got A.J. Jones, you got Malachi Riley. You've got a ton of different options right there. And when I say a ton of different options, I mean a ton of different options. So the receiving core is absolutely loaded top to bottom. Lots to like about that. Team. Now with at the tight end spot also becomes a little interesting. You've got Tanner McLaughlin, and again, this coaching staff has just done an amazing job of being able to evaluate talent and find out who's good, who isn't, who can do what. Because Tanner McLaughlin I didn't even think much about him when he came in. Thought he was a kid. Okay, he's out of Southern Utah. What exactly does that mean? But he came in here. Not only did he come in here, he came in and he was an all-conference type dude. I mean, he was really that good. And not only was he really that good, he started to kind of look like an NFL guy after a while. And I think that's what really impresses people is that, you generally don't see players that come from Southern Utah who come in here and don't have a ton of historical background to them and come in here. And not only that, but he also has the ability to be able to break things deep, to be able to get over the middle. Like I said, and he can block as well. Just a ton of stuff to really like about him. And not only is there a ton of stuff to like about him, he's also the player too that, he can, like I said, he can do a lot of different things right there. So again, I think that you're looking at another NFL player. Think about that. That's the recurring theme so far. We talked about that early in the show. NFL players, we'll talk about that a little bit later and how that factors in, how that matters. And we'll continue to do that. But first, let's talk a little bit about FanDuel right here. All right, FanDuel. All right, here's the deal. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. FanDuel is where it's at. Basketball's almost over. Grr. And football is over. Grr. But you know what? You still want things to still want something to bet on. You still want something to enjoy. Get on to FanDuel.com /LockedOn and check it out. Again, it makes the games more interesting. But again, be responsible with it, obviously. But you got baseball, you got UFC, you got golf. You got things that even if you don't like those sports, betting on it makes it a little bit more interesting. So check it out, FanDuel.com /LockedOnCollege. We're going to keep talking about the tight ends and the importance of NFL players. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. We're making your first listen of the day. All right, now we got a lot to get to on the rest of this show as well. So let's talk about it. All right, so Tanner McLaughlin, we talked about how he could be an all-conference type dude, and not only could be an all-conference type dude. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Now Kean Burnett, ex 4-star tight end out of California. He's an interesting guy because he probably has more top end ability than Tanner McLaughlin, and he also has kind of the capabilities of being that prototypical NFL tight end. Now, again, he comes from football royalty. His dad starred here at the U of A and went off and played in the NFL. So he's obviously got good bloodlines in there. And he's big. He's 6'4", 245. He's a good kid. You watch him. He's obviously really taken to the weight room. He's significantly bigger than he was at this time last year. I think you're going to see him on the field a lot. I really do. I think you could see 2 tight end sets. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And he's another player, again, stop me if you've heard this, that projects NFL-type talent. That's what you got to like about him. So there's that. And then with so there's that. So we've talked about NFL guys already. T-Mac, Jacob Cowing, Tanner McLaughlin, and Kean Burnett. Now let's get to the running back spot. Michael Wiley surprised a lot of people and decided to come back. Michael Wiley is a fantastic running back. He showed last year, especially against ASU at the end, that he can break plays, that he can catch plays out of the backfield, a lot of different stuff. He's a talented dude. And he's kind of your typical modern day all-purpose back. He's probably not a burner, but I could see him being on an NFL roster. Has very much of a Shane Vereen type feel to him. And then after that, you got Jonah Coleman, who weight room monster Jonah Coleman, and you've also got DJ Williams. Both those guys will play. I wish DJ Williams had played a little bit more than he did last year, but it's a pretty loaded running back room, and Scotty Graham definitely knows what he's doing. He's had they didn't fumble once last year, and Scotty Graham would not release the secrets as to why, but just know that he knows what he's doing. So I got no problem with whatever Scotty Graham wants to do on that front. Now, when it comes to some of the other players, then before we get to the O-line, Speedy Luke, fam. He is obviously is about 5'8", 170, something like that. He's never going to get much bigger than that. But I would like to see him utilized a lot more this year. Granted, he had injury and whatnot, but I'd like to see him utilized in a couple different ways. First, I'd like to see him return. I'd like to see him returning kicks. I don't want Jacob Cowing returning kicks. I'm sure he can do a very good job of it, but he's too important to the offense. And he's a little dude to begin with, and he's already out on the field the entire time at wide receiver. Don't want him returning kicks. Just feels like it's a problem waiting to happen. That's where Speedy Luke comes in. He can return kicks. Again, there's a lot of small dudes that have returned kicks in the past, whether that's DeAnthony Thomas. I know he's thicker, but Tyreek Hill, players like that. But that's kind of where it's at with those guys. I'd like to see Speedy Luke get the ball 8 to 10 times per game, whether that's rushing, whether that's receiving, whether that's kick returns. You got to get this guy the ball, and you got to get him the ball in space. You get him the ball in space, there's going to be problems for opposing defenses. That's where I would love to see that one occur right there. And then up front, let's just talk about it, man. The offensive line. The offensive line. The offensive line is fascinating. First, you got Big Jonas Savanea. He's going to be a first-round pick. Whenever he's eligible to be a first-round pick, he'll be a first-round pick. He was a freshman All-American guard last year. They moved him out to tackle this year. You generally don't do that if a guy doesn't have the type of talent to do that. Not only that, you've also got Jordan Morgan there. We'll get to that in a second. But Jonas Savanea is kind of the linchpin to the offensive line, because for the longest time, I think a lot of people questioned whether this offensive line would be capable of finding that right tackle, because again, there isn't a right tackle on this squad right now that I think they feel really comfortable in. That's why you move Jonah outside, which also increases Jonah's NFL stock, because he's already shown that he can excel at guard, obviously. And if you can excel at tackle, then you really become an interesting player as well. And then opposite him is Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan, fantastic player. Before the injury, probably was projecting as a first-round pick. He can, again, he's another dude, can do kind of everything out there. Very impressive player. When you watch him, you also know that he can move his feet. He's taken to strength and conditioning, obviously. Now, he tore up his knee at the end of the season, but watching him in spring, he was moving around incredibly well already. He was doing resistance training. He was running with a knee brace on. He looked good. He looks like he's going to be full go by the time Arizona starts the season. And if you're full go and you got both those dudes right there, you got Savanea and you've got Jordan Morgan holding it down on the outside, that makes life a lot easier for the rest of the squad right there. And quite frankly, not only does it make it a lot easier, there's not many teams that you can say have two potential first-round picks at those spots, and both those guys have that potential. Jordan Morgan's already been projected in as that as well. And then at guard, again, we're going to keep talking about the great job Jedd Fisch has done evaluating talent. Wendell Moe, kid out of Long Beach Poly, high school you might have heard of. For whatever reason, was not highly recruited. He committed to Morgan State originally. Morgan State, yes. Arizona got in on him late, but they're glad they got in on him because by midseason he was starting. Lamont Lovett, you called this one. And not only was he starting, he was starting to really put together some good play. Watching him, you can tell that his best football is certainly in front of him. He's bulked up, or he's bulked down, actually. Came in at about 360. He's probably about 335 now. But he looks great. And while he doesn't have the ability to probably move outside the way that Jonas Savanea does, he also has he's got some road grader to him right there at that guard position, and that's something you want to see. We're going to keep talking about Mo, and we're going to talk Josh Baker and who can be that next spot coming up next. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk. Keep talking Wendell Moe. I think Wendell Moe's got all conference potential at some point. Whether he hits that, we'll find out. But I do believe that he's got all conference potential. And not only do I believe he's got all conference potential, I believe that he has I believe that he's going to be a stalwart on this offensive line. Again, a great job by Jedd Fisch and staff finding him right there. Then next to him will be Josh Baker at center. Josh Baker doesn't possess the natural offensive talent that Savanea, Mo, Morgan have, but he's solid in there. No problem with him. He's solid. Not great, but at the center position, he knows his reads. He knows what to do. I'm okay with him right there. Next to him, though, that other guard spot, it's going to be fascinating to see what Arizona does. Now, they obviously feel they can find somebody because you don't move somebody like Jonas Savanea out without having another plan in there. And I think that the plan could be a bunch of different guys, to be honest with you. I wouldn't surprise me at all if Robert Polito, incoming freshman, gets in there. Keep in mind, Robert Polito was a kid who was committed to Alabama for the longest time out of California, was committed to Alabama. Massive kid, 6'7", 330. Could see them trying him inside, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's actually what happened. But they're going to have some options right here for sure. Not only are they going to have some options, they're going to let's be honest, they're going to have the ability to be able to make some plays out there. I think the offensive line is going to be just fine. Overall, though, if you're looking for a grade for the units, I think B to B+ for the QBs, A+ for the receivers, B+ for the tight ends. I'll go B with the quarterbacks right now. Offensive line, B, mainly because there's not a ton of depth outside of that starting 5 or that starting 4 right now, whoever slides into the guard. But there's a lot to like about what they can do. So again, one thing about this squad, and we're going to talk about defense tomorrow, but one thing about this squad you've got to keep in mind, though, is that I think as long as Jedd Fisch is here, this team won't struggle to find offensive talent. And not only will they not struggle to find offensive talent, I think they're going to be able to get next level type guys, because again, he's already shown in year 2 that the players he brought in were all able to put up numbers and were able to do a lot of different things. And I look for that to continue. And again, players like playing for talented on talented offenses with coaches that know what they're doing. And Arizona has certainly shown that on the offensive side of the ball. All right. Tomorrow, we're going to talk defense, get you. That's obviously a lot more up in the air than the Arizona offense. But again, wanted to break down all the positions at the U of A on offense, talk about the importance of the NFL, because the best teams have NFL players. Let's just, we're not breaking any news right there. And there's a lot of NFL players on the U of A offense. We're going to talk about the Arizona defense and what needs to happen. But as always, thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.